You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast, www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
I know a lot of you listen to the podcast first thing in the morning on Tuesday, and I'm really sorry to do this to you at the start of your day, but...
Now, you know she's very much against the Second Amendment. She wants to destroy your Second Amendment. Guns, right? I think what we should do is she goes around with armed bodyguards like you have never seen before. I think that her bodyguards should drop all weapons. They should disarm, right? Right? I think they should disarm. Immediately. What do you think? Yes? Yes. Yeah. Take their guns away. She doesn't want guns. Let's see what happens to her.
This isn't the first time Donald Trump has suggested that Hillary Clinton's Secret Service detail disarm. This is the first time he floated this idea. Let's see what happens to her, ... Essentially what he's doing there is inciting violence against Hillary Clinton, and not for the first time. And I'm not the first person to point that out. And so I'm going to leave that argument aside. Other people are out there making that argument. Donald Trump is a dangerous maniac who is inciting violence against the Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton. There's another argument that I want to make, which is the logical extension and conclusion of this argument that many Republicans make and have made, and made against Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are for gun control, which means they want to repeal the Second Amendment, which they don't, which means they want to disarm Americans, which they don't, and take everyone's guns away, which they don't. I wish they did. I'm one of those Americans who would like to see the Second Amendment repealed and everybody's guns grabbed. But Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are not those Americans. They don't agree with me on this. They are for reasonable, sane gun control, not disarming Americans. Because their argument goes like this. Obama and Hillary, they're hypocrites because they want to take your guns away, the guns you use to protect your family. But Obama and Hillary, they're protected by people with what? By people with guns. Secret Service agents that have guns. And if Hillary doesn't believe that you should have guns to protect yourself and your family, then why does she get guns and armed guards and a Secret Service detail with her everywhere she goes? What a fucking hypocrite. That's the Republican argument. That's the argument that Donald Trump is making, that others have also made, and made about Barack Obama. Now, never mind. Let's set aside for a moment the fact that keeping guns in your home makes your family less safe, not more safe. And again, set aside the fact that they don't want to take your fucking guns away. I wish they goddamn did. All Obama and Hillary want to do is make guns a little bit harder to get, just a tiny little bit, so that bad guys and deranged guys have a slightly harder time getting their bad, deranged hands on guns. But for the sake of argument, let's pretend that Donald Trump and basically everyone who ran for the Republican nomination, because they all made this argument, let's pretend that they're right. Hillary and Obama have said that guns make us less safe, while guys with guns keep them safe, and that makes them hypocrites. And you know who else is a hypocrite then? Donald fucking Trump and every last asshole who ran for the GOP nomination. All of them fucking hypocrites. Because their argument is that guns make us safer. And the problem isn't that there are too many guns rattling around in this country, but too few. And we need good guys with guns to take out bad guys with guns. And if only everyone in that movie theater or that classroom or that classroom or that classroom or that classroom had a gun, then the good guys could have stopped the bad guy. That's how they believe that it should work for you. For everyday, average, ordinary Americans trying to go about their business, trying to drop their kids off at school, trying to go to a movie, trying to go to a restaurant, trying to go to a Planned Parenthood clinic. That's how it should work for you. Just add more guns and everyone will be more safe. So it seems to me that Donald Trump and every last Republican who has run or may run or one day might be president should announce that on day one, they're going to remove the metal detectors from the White House grounds and allow Americans to carry loaded guns into the White House. And right now, Donald Trump can not disarm his Secret Service detail, but stop requiring people who attend his rallies to pass through metal detectors and not show up at his rallies and carry into his rallies guns. Because if having more guns around is a great way to keep you and your family safe, then having more guns around should be a great way to keep the next Republican president and his family safe. If heavily armed randos wandering around your schools and your workplaces and your children's and your universities and your amusement parks make you safer, then heavily armed randos should be allowed to wander around the East Room on White House tours and attend state dinners with concealed weapons or open carry all over the White House grounds, to keep the president safe. Because more guns keep people more safe. And if a bad guy with a gun should attempt to take advantage of our next Republican president's logically consistent, non-hypocritical policy on people carrying guns into the White House and everywhere else, then all the good guys with guns in the White House, not just the Secret Service detail, but the randos in the White House, they can all pull out their weapons and start blasting away until all the bad guys in the White House are dead. That's how Donald Trump and every other Republican thinks that it should work where you live and where you work and where your kids go to school. So why shouldn't it work that way where they work, where the next Republican president lives and works, in the White House? But if that's not the way they think it should work at the White House, if Donald Trump doesn't support open carry and concealed carry in the White House, just everywhere else but where he happens to be, then he's the fucking hypocrite. And if he's not a hypocrite, Donald Trump will allow people to carry guns into his rallies, and Donald Trump, if he wins, God forbid, will allow people to carry guns into his White House. Don't take their guns away, Donald. Let them carry, open carry, in your White House. Let's see what happens to you then. Coming up on today's show, Mistress Matisse is here to talk about the Sex Worker Outreach Project's new program, reaching out to incarcerated sex workers, and tons of your questions, tons of your calls, all on today's show. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron delivers all fresh, high-quality ingredients and recipes you need to create delicious home-cooked meals. Get your first 3 meals for free by going to blueapron.com/savage. Today's episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage process into the 21st century with a fast, easy, and completely online process. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/savage.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website, blog, or online store for you and your ideas. Squarespace features an elegant interface, beautiful templates, and incredible 24/7 customer support. Try Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter offer code SAVAGE at checkout to get 10% off. That's squarespace.com, offer code SAVAGE.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 33-year-old lady, a homosexual one. It doesn't matter too much where I live or my relationship status. I chose an academic career path, which has required me to move several times and has put a ticking time bomb on my relationships. And so I've never gotten married. Nonetheless, I'm at the age where many of my friends are and have been for some time. Why I'm calling is one of my dear college friends is getting hitched in just a few short weeks, so I'm really excited about the wedding. However, she is getting married to a man of a more conservative political bent than myself, and so that side of the aisle will be pretty red. And frankly, her family is also pretty conservative. But actually, none of this in particular is a huge problem for me. Most of my extended family are Republicans. I can play nice. I've done it before. Here's the real kicker. Rick Santorum is in the wedding party. A number of wedding guests are LGBT, such as myself, and several members of the bridal party have had numerous relationships with women. So, what the hell? It just seems kind of weird not to acknowledge it. So I've been trying to figure out a way to acknowledge it without either ruining my friend's wedding or being the victim of a hate crime. I had the idea of just going in full-on drag and making every effort to befriend Mr. Santorum, but I think that could be inviting trouble. That's just sort of theater for theater's sake. So what do you think? What would you do? A better thought I've been having recently is to make a toast about how happy I am for their nuptials, and then underscoring how happy I am that all of us can get married now. Perhaps a little cheesy, but sincere, to the point, hopefully will be taken as I intend it to be taken. Thoughts, queries, concerns? Would love to hear them.
Better Rick Santorum at the wedding than Slick Santorum on the wedding night. Anybody out there who's not familiar with my history with Rick Santorum, you can Google me and Rick Santorum, or you can go to spreadingsantorum.com, where you will find the alternative definition for Santorum that was invented and selected and promoted by the readers of Savage Love 15 years ago. And that alternative definition, of course, is the frothy mix of lube and fecal matter that is sometimes the byproduct of anal sex. My readers redefined Santorum in reaction to Santorum describing gay and lesbian couples who wish to marry as the moral equivalents of child rapists and dog fuckers. It was an insanely offensive thing to say. And remember, those of you who are inclined now to feel sorry for Rick Santorum, he was the third most powerful member of the U.S. Senate at the time. It was a time when gay and lesbian couples, gay people, were being attacked. It was a time when people were floating. Rick Santorum was floating an amendment to the U.S. Constitution banning same-sex marriage, and same-sex marriage amendments were popping up on ballots in states all over the country, banning same-sex marriage, not bringing us same-sex marriage. We were in peril, and we were a small and tiny and marginalized community fighting back with the tools we had at hand, which included mockery and derision. And yes, it's a horribly offensive thing to say about Rick Santorum, but it was said in response to the horribly offensive things Rick Santorum was saying in the U.S. Senate and the horribly offensive things he was proposing that the Senate and the government and the president do to gays and lesbians. The effort to redefine Rick Santorum's last name was not grounded in his opposition to same-sex marriage. At the time, everybody in the Senate, every Democrat in the Senate, including Hillary Clinton, opposed same-sex marriage. Barack Obama opposed same-sex marriage, and in the most offensive terms in 2008. And there were no corresponding efforts to redefine Clinton or Obama or Patty Murray or John Kerry's name or anyone else's. Rick Santorum's assholery rose to a level where it required a proportionate assholey response, and that is what he got. So you are going to a wedding and Rick Santorum is in the wedding party, and what should you do? I don't think you should make every effort to offend him. I have taken care of that for you. Done and done. And I don't think that we should take the gains that we've made for granted. I don't think anyone who read the Republican Party's platform for this election or is following what Donald Trump is doing and paying attention to the promises Donald Trump is making to right-wing gay-hating shitbags should take the gains that we've made for granted. We cannot get complacent. We can, however, to torment our opponents, to drain them of energy, we can perform a sort of complacency. We can make them think we're taking it for granted. We can perform ease and entitlement and comfort even as we remain vigilant behind the scenes and behind their backs so that they will give the fuck up. If I were you and I was at that wedding and I could wear a full body disguise so that Rick Santorum didn't recognize me and deck me, I would walk up to him and say, I'm so glad that now everyone in this country is free to marry the person that they love, myself included. And engage with him and have a little convo with him. He's been on Rachel Maddow, Rick Santorum, and they have engaged and had little convos. He is capable of speaking to a queer person, not this queer person. I don't think he'd be capable of speaking very calmly with me, but you can take it to him. Private citizen to private citizen. He got cashiered, booted out of the Senate, largest losing margin for a sitting U.S. senator ever, sent packing. 2 efforts to get himself the GOP nomination, both failed. He is over, he is done. And LGBT people, we helped finish him, not by redefining his last name, but by changing the way people in this country, conservatives included, feel about LGBT rights, same-sex couples, and marriage equality. He lost the argument along with his Senate seat, along with both of his efforts to win the GOP nomination. He is a loser. And you should torment him by being slightly empathetic. Don't go in there with your middle finger up. Go there with a little dollop of patronizing pity. And I would make that toast if I were you. Toast the happy couple and offer a toast to all the happy couples in this country who are now free to marry. And use that expression, free to marry. That is your upraised middle finger. Rick Santorum will know it's for him.
Hi, Dan. My boyfriend and I have an open relationship, and he has been dating a trans woman who is HIV positive, but she is on all the right medications, and her viral load, or I guess that's how you say it, viral load is 0 or really low. They haven't had penetrative sex, but they did have oral sex where her penis was in my boyfriend's mouth, unprotected. And I'm just wondering what his risk for exposure is. I read that even when your viral load is really low or 0, that's just in the blood, and then things can still be transmitted through genital fluid. And now, granted, she's on hormones and stuff, and he said there was no fluid in coming out of her penis when they were messing around, and she didn't ejaculate. But I'm still kind of nervous. And I'm just wondering if you have any advice for someone like me who's worried about maybe potential exposure, and also how to go about being with other partners while I'm waiting for to get tested. I have a date coming up soon, and I'm wondering how obligated am I to tell this person that I may have been exposed to HIV, since my boyfriend and I have had sex since his encounter with her. And if me and other people just use condoms, am I in the clear? Are we in the clear?
There's a little bit of contradictory information out there on the internet that seems to be panicking you. You will find on websites, including government websites, that even someone with an undetectable viral load, with no detectable virus in their bloodstream, which is what the tests look at, might have the virus in their vaginal fluids and pre-cum, pre-ejaculate, and semen. And so it's possible there could be a transmission of HIV through unprotected intercourse. However, there have been numerous studies showing that people who are compliant with their drug regimens, who have 0 viral loads, undetectable viral loads, are effectively non-infectious. Major studies involving thousands of couples, heterosexual couples, is the one I'm looking at right now, that have found that the person who is HIV positive, if they're compliant with the drug regimen, if they have undetectable viral loads, have not one example in this major study of nearly 2,000 couples was there an example of the virus being transmitted. We also know, back from the bad old days of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, that the risks of transmission through oral sex alone are exceedingly low. So there's this double whammy here. Your boyfriend's partner, who's trans, is compliant and has an undetectable viral load, and all they did was oral. So there are really 2 layers of quasi-protection there. From HIV is probably not what you need to worry about here. If you want to worry about something, and I don't encourage you necessarily to panic, but if you want to worry, oral gonorrhea, oral syphilis, HPV, herpes, these are the things that there's some actual risk for in unprotected oral sex with somebody who's positive and drug compliant and has an undetectable viral load. There's another layer of protection that your boyfriend could employ, which is PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, Truvada. He can, if he has an HIV positive partner and he's concerned about transmission, even though that person has a 0 viral load and is effectively non-infectious, he can opt to get on PrEP for your comfort and safety, for his own comfort and safety, as a third, particularly if they stick just to oral, as a third layer of protection for all involved. And I would advise, if and when your boyfriend and this other woman move on to penetrative sex, that they use condoms. Even if she is undetectable, even if he is on PrEP, they should use condoms, because condoms will offer you some protection from other sexually transmitted infections, also known as the sexually transmitted infections that in this case you should be concerned about. One of our sponsors today is Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Get approved for a mortgage online in minutes using your phone or tablet. This completely online process helps you ditch the stacks of financial documents by using cutting-edge technology to make getting a mortgage more convenient than ever before. You can also safely share bank statements and pay stubs with the touch of a button. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/savage. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Hi, Daniel. I'm 27. I love to fuck, and so far it's only been with women. I guess my question is a bit of a logistics one. So for as long as I can remember, my penis, when erect, has always kind of pointed down. I've always had a full range of motion of being able to, like, by hand point it towards the sky or towards the floor, like 180 degrees, which, as far as I can tell through, like, porn and stuff, is not typically the case with other men. So I have a partner, and I guess my question, this has been a bit of a problem during sex because I haven't been able to pull out during my thrusts as far as I would like to, because if I go too far, it kind of falls out of her and I have to reinsert by hand. And because of that, I can't really have the range of motion I would like for if I'd like to hold her down with both of my hands or something like that. So I was wondering if you had any suggestions for either any devices that could keep it straight so I could do things like that, or if there are any positions that are more advantageous for what I have going on downstairs. I just don't want the weird orientation of my penis to be a problem when we fuck.
Reverse cowgirl. You're welcome. I'm tempted to leave it there, but I will say a few more words. This is your dick. Like, this is New York. This is your dick, and this is how your dick works. And your dick is angled in a certain way that makes the kind of all the way out, all the way in, or nearly all the way out, and back all the way in thrusting that you would like to engage in, probably because you've seen a ton of it on pornography, not logistically easy or possible for you. So yeah, you will have to find some positions where the angle of her vagina, the way her body is positioned, like in Reverse Cowgirl, recreates the angle that missionary is for most people whose dicks go straight out or straight up. And when you want to enjoy the missionary position and you want to hold her down, you just aren't going to be able to pull out as far as you would like. We don't always get what we want.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. They make it simple and intuitive to create your website, blog, or online store. You can add and arrange your content and features with the click of a mouse, and they make adding a domain to your site simple. If you sign up for a year, you'll receive a custom domain for free. And if you plan to create a website for your business, Squarespace has all the tools you need to get it up and running quickly. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com and enter offer code SAVAGE to get 10% off your first purchase.
Hi, Dan. I'm a single 27-year-old female living on the East Coast. I've been hooking up with a slightly younger guy for about 6 months now. It's always been casual, and we both know that. We keep it fun, different, and occasionally a little spicy with some choking and hair pulling. He's great about keeping me happy, lots of oral sex, which he's fantastic at, and making sure his huge dick is not too much for me to handle. It usually isn't. But there's one thing that's strange about this whole relationship. I've never seen him come. Never. He doesn't finish while we're fucking. He doesn't take care of himself when I finish or after I finish. And he's always overly gracious about me not needing to try to blow him or give him a hand job. He gets hard fast and stays that way for the whole time. And when I encourage him to come or ask him what he wants, he's enthusiastic, but it never happens. And he never seems bothered about it or even slightly frustrated. While I did embrace this awesome situation for a bit and try to focus on me, I'm back to wishing he could come and enjoy it as much as I do. Is this common, and what is your advice? Is there a way I could try to be more open about it, or something physical I could do to help him out? Or should I just stop complaining and enjoy the awesome ride that's all about me?
I think you should stop complaining. I also think you should stop making assumptions. The assumption you're making is that he's not enjoying this as much as you are. Maybe he loves the sex and he's having a blast and he's having as much fun as you are, even if he doesn't come in the moment himself. And what's going on with him? Who knows? So long as you're communicating to him that you are open to working in whatever way he wants to work toward having an orgasm himself in your presence, so long as the door is always open and you're receptive in that way, receptive to whatever he wants, whatever he needs, receptive to him advocating for himself in the moment, just you reemphasize that every once in a while. If in the moment he doesn't need or want to come, don't make it a problem. Maybe he's self-conscious about how long it takes him to come. Maybe he's one of those guys who kind of has a kink about not coming, who likes to preserve all his powerful male seed and not screw up his chakra or whatever fucking bullshit that is by blowing his load out into the world and draining his male essence. Maybe he's got some like woohoo nonsense going on that he is too and rightly embarrassed to share with you at this moment, at this stage of your relationship. You're open to doing for him. He isn't wishing to be done for right now. Don't be like one of those straight guys. And you haven't been like one of those straight guys, so credit to you, but don't become one of those straight guys who makes the girl coming in the moment all about his ego and assumes that there's something wrong with him or what he's doing, or that she's not that turned on, or he's failing as a sex partner because she couldn't really be enjoying herself if she's not coming like he's coming. Don't flip that on its head and make the same assumption about him in this situation. Relax. Tell him you're there. Tell him you'd love to see him come sometime, love to help him. Otherwise, you are enjoying this ride. No more complaining, no more assumptions. As I've mentioned on the show before, Terry and I have been using Blue Apron at home to have meal ingredients shipped to our house for a while now. For less than $10 per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals right in your own kitchen. They send us tasty, healthy meals, and they've never repeated the same meals within a year, so the variety is amazing. We even save the recipe card so that we can make the dishes later on our own in between deliveries from Blue Apron. You customize your recipes each week based on your preferences, and you choose delivery options to fit your needs. There's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. This week, they're offering dishes like Korean pork tacos or crispy spiced cauliflower. And recipes are between 500 to 700 calories per portion, so it's delicious and good for you. Right now, you can get your first 3 meals for free at blueapron.com/savage. That's blueapron.com/savage. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. We're going to take a quick break from your calls to have a conversation with Mistress Matisse, sex workers' rights activist and advocate and writer and frequent longtime guest of the Savage Lovecast and guest expert in Savage Love, the column, going back 20 years.
Oh my God. How did we start doing this when we were like 11 years old?
I don't know. People ask me how long I've been doing the column and I say 25 years. And then they ask me for my age when they interview me and I say 40, just to see if they notice. When I was 15 years old, I started writing the sex advice column in my school newspaper, and now look at me.
Child savant, absolutely. I'm going with that too.
So you were telling me about a new program that's being run by SWOP, which stands for Sex Workers Outreach Project.
Yes.
And I loved it, and I wanted to get you on the show to talk about it and share it with listeners.
I love it too. I am super, super, super duper excited about it. This is a sort of a pilot program. SWOP is a nationwide organization that has chapters in different cities, but SWOP Behind Bars is a program that's targeted specifically to women who have been incarcerated for prostitution-related crimes. And there's a lot of them. And now that it's happening, I'm sort of thinking to myself, why the hell didn't we do this 10 years ago? We should have been, but now it's rolling, and I'm super, super excited about it. So I can sort of tell you in an ascending scale what we do. One of the things.
Well, first tell us what SWOP is. Sex Workers Outreach Project. It's run by sex workers' rights advocates and activists, and it's a pro-decriminalization organization. Would that be safe to say?
It's a nonprofit organization, educational stuff, outreach to other sex workers, support, those kinds of things. We're not a lobbying organization because you're not allowed to be a lobbying organization, but we do feel that decriminalization is the best way to go. Yes.
And decriminalization, for people out there who haven't been paying attention, versus legalization of prostitution.
Yes, decriminalization good, legalization bad.
And why is that?
Legalization preserves prostitution as a crime and makes often these tiny little loopholes in which it's not. And that's not what we want. We want any consensual adult exchange of sex for money to be not a crime. If it wouldn't be a crime if you didn't pay money for it, it shouldn't be a crime if you do pay money for it. So we're not talking about rape, we're not talking about child molestation. All those things are crimes even when no money is involved. But if it would not be illegal, if no money changed hands, then putting money into the situation should not make it a crime. Okay. That's decriminalization.
And that's better for sex workers because...
Because I've worked in legal brothels in Nevada where they have legalized prostitution. You have to go to the sheriff's office and register as a prostitute. You get like your fingerprints taken. You are on record forever as having been a prostitute. Your movements you have to stay in the brothel. You cannot leave the brothel. There's a strict regimen. The control they have, those women, you can't just do a good do your job and go home.
It sounds like everything people who want prostitution to remain illegal complain about being done to women.
Right.
And then in a legalized system or a heavily regulated system, which they might consent to, those problems persist or get worse.
Yeah, they do. It's not empowering to the sex workers at all. All the power remains in the hands of the state and a few people who will be able to, have legal brothels, because the licenses are very expensive. They're way prohibitive. You can't just be an independent prostitute.
And the place that a lot of people go when you talk about decriminalization is, how does it protect people who've been, sorry, I'm going to use the word trafficked, or being coerced or forced into prostitution? How does decriminalization protect or help them if that's someone's chief concern?
Because for one thing, the main thing, if you're being harmed in any situation of sex work, the fact that you are a criminal only makes it worse. No one is ever helped by being arrested and taken to jail.
So someone who's being forced into prostitution who goes to the police can themselves be charged with prostitution.
Absolutely.
And it's used to control that person by the people who may be coercing them.
Right. You can't go to the cops. You have no recourse. They know that. I was just learning the other day, 60% of women arrested for prostitution had gone to police to report a crime against them, and then they were arrested. That's really shitty.
And that's what criminalization brings us.
It does.
These people that the folks who want to see prostitution remain illegal are so concerned about helping are harmed by the system that they want to see stay in place.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about SWOP behind bars, because I think it's such a terrific idea.
It is, it's amazing. I'm so excited about it. I got started with it when they were calling for people to be pen pals with women who had been incarcerated for prostitution-related crimes. And I thought, well, God, how could I not? And then we started doing a program where people could buy, because it's what kind of mail and stuff you can receive in jail is very controlled. But through Amazon, and I think through maybe Barnes & Noble, you can send individual prisoners books, or you can donate books to the prison library. And let me tell you what, a lot of prison libraries are not much, especially women's prisons. A lot of them don't have a law library. If there even is one at all, some don't have any. So these women have there's no connection to the outside world. Obviously, they don't have internet. So books to them are huge. And you can send someone a $5 book, and it's an enormous thing to them. And letters and just contact with the outside world is really, really, a lot of people don't realize there are women who are incarcerated for years at a time because of a prostitution-related crime. It's still second and third offense. Simple prostitution is a felony in many states. There are women in federal prisons because they have been accused of trafficking on a really flimsy basis, because they're not criminal masterminds. They're like a girl who called another girl and said, hey, I've got a date, come over and we'll do it together. Okay, that's trafficking. You just trafficked somebody, and that's a federal crime. And so you're going to go do, 3 to 5 years in prison for that.
Now, even the prohibitionists, even people who want prostitution to remain illegal, argue that we shouldn't be punishing people who are prostituted. It's never something anybody chooses to do. It's something done to them. That we should go after the g.u.ns, that we should adopt the Nordic model. It should be legal to sell sex and illegal to buy it. And as Mike Crawford rightly points out, that makes someone who's a sex worker, their body the scene of a crime. So they're still in the crosshairs of law enforcement. And so that doesn't work. But that's the model that people who say that they're for prohibition and want to end prostitution want to adopt, where the sex worker did nothing wrong, the John did something wrong, don't punish her, punish him. So it seems to me that everyone on either side of this issue, prohibitionist or decriminalizationist, could get behind SWOP behind bars, because however you feel about the legality or illegality of prostitution, everyone who's in jail on a prostitution-related charge, everyone who is in jail for selling sex is the victim and should have your sympathy wherever you fall on this issue.
Yes, they should, but oddly they don't, because there are a lot of very large, very well-funded rescue organizations who do absolutely nothing to support the women who are in prison while they're in the prison or when they exit. And what do you think a woman is going to do because they're overwhelmingly low-income people, people of color, trans people are disproportionately targeted. Now they have a prison record. What are they going to do when they get out of prison? What do you think is really going to happen to
They
that
don't have
person?
any support.
Right. And so overwhelmingly, they're at a very high risk of being rearrested because they have to eat. They have to have food and money and a place to live.
So if these wealthy prohibitionist organizations were really concerned with helping people transition out of prostitution, they would have more programs to help people who want to transition out of prostitution. We don't want to see anybody selling sex who doesn't want to be making a free choice to sell sex. It's the same argument around abortion and choice. It's bad for abortion rights if there are people out there, because of economic circumstance or outside pressure, have an abortion, kind of against the world. It's bad for prostitution, for the argument about sex work and legalizing it or decriminalizing it, forgive me, if there are people being coerced into it by economic circumstance. And we don't want that. You don't want that.
No,
I don't want that.
Nobody wants that.
And the prohibitionists don't want to do anything about it.
No, they don't. All they want to do is perpetuate their own very well-funded organizations and, kind of inflate a media panic about all the sex that's happening, all the sex.
Mm-hmm.
They like to talk about that sex a lot.
Would you want prohibitionists becoming pen pals who swap behind bars with incarcerated women?
That would not be my first choice.
Maybe they should just send books.
Yeah, just in books. There are women in prison who feel that prostitution was a bad choice for them, and they, I respect that, and they want to make a different choice when they get out. There are people in there who have had, drug problems in the past or other issues. They want to have a different life, and hey, I support them doing whatever they need. I just want them to have a better life waiting for them when they come out. And I want some people these prohibitionists, I want them to walk their talk.
To put up or shut up.
Right.
And one of the ways prohibitionists could put up is by reaching out to and offering a sympathetic ear, contact with the outside world, and listening, not lecturing.
Yeah.
These women who are being punished for something that even prohibitionists say these women should not be punished for.
I agree. There's a lot more they could do. They could do we are offering scholarships to women who are in prison. If you have if you want to get a GED, we'll send you, if we get the money, self-study guides. If you have a GED or better, we have a scholarship program where you can get trained to be a paralegal while you're in jail, so that when you leave, you have a job that you can go and do. We have so many things we're trying to do for these women, and we're doing it. It's like the whores who are doing it. It's not the prohibitionists. It's the whores who are being supported by our clients, who are awesome. I do so many of my clients, I could not do what I do. So, yeah.
Which is a whole other conversation about clients and Johns that we should have another day.
Yeah.
Because that's something that just exercises me. Because the letters I get, as I've said a million times on the podcast, the letters I get from people who are thinking about employing a sex worker aren't, where can I find the nearest trafficked 13-year-old? They're always, how do I avoid buying sex from someone who doesn't want to be selling it, who isn't making a free choice? How can I tell if someone is doing this of their own free will or not? Yeah. And the Johns I hear from have ethical, moral concern for the women that they're buying sex from.
That is overwhelmingly my experience, the experience of people I know. There are bad people in the world, and I'm not saying there are not.
And they're not going to send me letters saying, I'm looking for a 13-year-old. How can you help? Because they know I'm going to take that right to the cops.
That doesn't go well. There are bad people who engage in sex without money being involved, right? That just happens. But criminalizing the people involved does not help. And mass incarceration is something that we're all becoming more and more aware of. It's a huge problem, and women, the number of women in jail has ballooned disproportionately to that of men, and it's usually for low-level, non-violent offenses.
Like sex work.
Yeah, like sex work.
So where can people find Swap Behind Bars online and learn about helping?
Well, you can go to Twitter at Swap Behind Bars. If you can't find on Twitter, you can come to me, at Mistress Matisse.
Careful if you follow Mistress Matisse. Sometimes there are pictures of Mistress Matisse that keep me up nights.
Fair warning, I do sometimes get a little excited about my...
This is your blanket Mistress Matisse Twitter account trigger warning.
Yes, thank you. So you can find all this information. You can find 10 ways to help incarcerated sex workers at swapbehindbars.org.
Terry and I are sending books. Please join us in helping out these women who've been incarcerated for sex work. Wherever you fall on criminalization or prohibition, you can at least send a book to a woman who's behind bars and shouldn't be.
That would be great.
There's more Matisse on the Magnum. She took a couple of questions and sat in for a bit longer. Go to savagelovecast.com for information about subscribing to the longer, ad-free Magnum edition of the Savage Lovecast.
Hi, Dan. I am a 23-year-old cis female. I am a lesbian, and I recently went through a breakup a couple of weeks ago. I work out in bars, and I met this bartender. We totally hit it off. The first night we hung out, we were hanging out on stage, ended up making out, got each other's numbers, and have been pretty much, seeing each other and hooking up ever since. And it's been out of this world. I mean, my previous relationship with her was zero sexual chemistry, so this has just been kind of a crazy ride. Rewind a little bit. So she is married, and when we first discussed it, she said she's just legally married and she's just staying at the house for the kids, and they're their marriage is essentially over. And so I just assumed, she planned on getting a divorce and all this. And I really wanted to keep it strictly sexual because I'm not ready to jump into anything. Well, throughout the past couple of days, she's been trying to see me every day, and she'll hold my hand and call me babe and, just do all of those kind of emotional things that you do when you're developing feelings for someone. So I asked her last night if she talked to her husband about seeing other people because I just, want to make sure I'm not getting jumped in an alley or anything like that. And she never tells him that when we're together, it's always a secret. So this was kind of odd for me. And, I don't really ask about their relationship. I don't want to know. I don't think it's much of my business, especially if we're trying to keep this strictly sexual. But her answer was that 8 months ago, she told him that she wanted to open up the marriage because she didn't feel that way for him anymore. And he responded with, well, I only want to be with you. So she said, okay, have fun. And that was kind of the end of the conversation with her. She didn't, go into any more details. And afterwards, I just kind of felt weird about it. I feel like as far as opening up the marriage, it's mostly a sexual thing, and it shouldn't get in the way of the marriage and your family. And I kind of feel like I'm guilty of having an emotional affair with this girl. My question to you, Dan, is do you think I should completely cut this off? Am I doing something not okay here? Or should I just talk to her and tell her how I feel and keep it strictly sexual?
Cheating is wrong, except when it's not. So to be the person that someone is cheating with is wrong, always wrong, except, when it's not, and it's a case-by-case specific judgment call. Depends on what you're comfortable with. Sometimes, as I have said, and I'm lonely here in the advice industrial racket in saying this, but sometimes people cheat because they should, because they have cause, because they have grounds. Sometimes people are doing what they need to do to stay married and stay sane. Sometimes people are in circumstances or situations where cheating is the least worst option, not just for themselves, but also for the person that they are ostensibly cheating on. And as Esther Perel says, we demonstrate loyalty in other ways too, and that there are other forms of betrayal that are at least as bad or worse. There's neglect, abuse, violence, contempt. Can also be as scalding a betrayal as a sexual infidelity, but we never talk about those in the same way that we talk about sexual infidelity. And then there are those cases where cheating ends a relationship that really needed to end, in which case the person that the cheater cheated with was kind of doing God's work. Sometimes the cheating is a catalyst, and the person that the cheater cheated with is themselves a catalyst, and helps to end something that, again, had to end. Helps people see that something that needed to end does indeed need to end. Gives people the courage sometimes to end something that needs to end. And not just the person cheating the courage to end something that needs to end. Sometimes the person cheated on. The only thing that gives them the courage to get out of a shitty relationship with a serial adulterer who's not very kind, who may be doing other forms of betrayal that are as bad or worse than the cheating, sometimes they don't actually pull the plug until the cheating comes along, because then they feel that they have permission, they have license, they have support from society to end the relationship. Because, oh, here's the cheating, that's the unforgivable. Neglect, contempt, even abuse, that can be worked with, worked around, go see a counselor, but cheating, oh my God, you got to go. And sometimes people get to that point and they go, and they needed to go all along. And again, that can pin a smiley face on a cheating circumstance, or the person the cheater cheated with, pin a little medal on them that is semi-exonerating. This is a lot of spinning to get to, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what's going on in their marriage. But you are complicit in wrongdoing here. And there's no escaping that. You are complicit. She is cheating on her husband with your help. And then I want to ask all these follow-up questions. I want to dive into the gray areas. Should she be cheating on her husband? Does she have cause? Is he being neglectful? Is he sexually neglecting her? Is he cheating on her with somebody else? Is their romantic and sexual relationship dead, and they're just roommates and partners and co-parents who may both be doing what they need to do to stay married and stay sane for their kids. In which case, maybe it's okay what you're doing, but these are unknowables. I don't even know if you can know these things, because you could ask her, you could press her, and she may give you justifications, rationalizations. She may tell you what she thinks you need to hear to keep the pussy coming, literally. And it may or may not be true. Or it may be true. I think people who are in your circumstance have to look inside and ask themselves what they are comfortable with and what degree of complicitness in an infidelity they are comfortable with. You are not the one committing it, but you are helping. You are sitting in the car outside the bank with the engine running while somebody else points a gun at a teller. Not as bad as a bank robber, but you helped.
Hey, this is actually a call in response to episode 516. The woman called in her teenage son's friend and his girlfriend have the baby fever. I agree with Dan's advice. You can't really tell teenagers in love what to do, but maybe you could help facilitate some baby time with a newborn without much help, and maybe they will have a change of heart after spending some time with a baby, especially a colicky baby.
Hey, Dan, Nancy, and the tech-savvy at-risk youth. This is in response to the caller from episode 516 who had a libido mismatch with a guy, and she was trying to figure out whether to dump him or stay with him. And, this is going to sound funny, but I think you're too focused on sex, which has to be, sort of ridiculous for a sex show. But, in fact, you also talk about relationships. And I think when people call in saying, I have a wonderful relationship and the sex isn't good, how do I make the relationship work? The answer should not always be, throw out the relationship. If there's no sex, it's no good. If there was no dancing in their relationship, if one partner really loved to dance and the other one hated dancing and never wanted to do it, you wouldn't tell them to break up. You'd tell them to go dance with other people or to find a way to work around it or something like that. And I think that's true for sex too. I have been in relationships where there has been a substantial libido mismatch and the relationship worked fine. And we found other things to do with each other and we found other ways to fulfill our sexual needs. And it worked out fine.
Hey, Dan. Oh, my God, I love you. I've listened to every podcast. First of all, your advice to that lady, that girl in the 10-month relationship with the low sex drive man was spot on, because I married that man and I spent 9 years with him and it sucked, okay? It sucked. We hardly ever had sex and it was shitty. Don't do it. No one marry that. Okay. To the young man who called who was dating the 12 years older woman, you are not alone. My boyfriend now of almost 2 years is 10 years younger than I am. And similar to you and your girlfriend, we started as a fling. We had no expectations. And we've just kind of been surprised at every turn to find ourselves still together. But we love each other. We're happy. It's going great. And the best advice I can give you is just enjoy the moment and don't worry about what's going to happen, but just wait and see and find out.
And we're going to leave it there. But before we go, the Hump Film Fest's fall tour tickets are available now online. Go to humpfilmfest.com. Miami, Minneapolis, Vancouver, British Columbia, Sacramento, Denver, Brooklyn, Victoria, British Columbia, Cleveland, and Baltimore. Hump is coming to you. Go to humpfilmfest.com to get your tickets now and to see the Hump trailer. The 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you want to record a question or a comment for a future show, please give us a buzz, 206-302-2064. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. Follow Mistress Matisse on Twitter, at your own risk, at Mistress Matisse. And follow SWOP Behind Bars, that's SWOP, Sex Workers Outreach Project. Follow SWOP Behind Bars on Twitter at SWOP Behind Bars. Speaking of Twitter, Annalisa tweets, I'm going to need to find some podcasts for the 20-ish hours I'm going to be driving. Blarg. And Will Gibbons tweeted back, Revisionist History, Criminal, Savage Lovecast, How Stuff Works, The Collective Podcast, and The Minimalists, all my faves. Thank you, Will, for the recommendation of the Savage Lovecast. And honored to be on a list with so many greats. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian, and me and Nancy and the tech-savvy at-risk youth. We will all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks for downloading.